Hello, hello everybody, and welcome to today's ninth SASI lunch break. In today's lunch break, we will dive deeper into the potential of digital technologies for due diligence in agricultural supply chains. In particular, we will focus on the potential of AI-powered geospatial solutions for smarter due diligence. In these systems, satellite data is analyzed with artificial intelligence to pinpoint inter alia land use patterns and to forecast outcomes such as yields. On the basis of 3 different presentations from 3 distinguished guests, we want to shed light on how this technology works and what opportunities and benefit it brings with us. My name is Christian Thorn. I'm the director of the Policy Institute based in Berlin, and it's a great pleasure to host this session today. Please note that this session is recorded as always, and please use the chat for your questions and comments, and I will take these questions and comments in the Q&A. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the microphone for the opening remarks to Moritz Heldmann, who is spokesperson of the Sustainable Agricultural Supply Chain Initiative, SASI. Moritz, great that you're here with us.
Thank you, Christian. On behalf of the Federal German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to today's SASI lunch break. So every Friday of the month, our well-established and trusted format presents various practice-oriented tools and guidelines demonstrating that the implementation of corporate due diligence is feasible for everyone. And aligned with this, the new BMZ Action Plan for Business and Development emphasizes partnerships with German companies and global partners along dialogue at eye level as key element of our future development cooperation. The title of today's session, AI-powered geospatial solutions for smarter due diligence, speaks directly to a future where data, technology, and human innovation converge. These elements support creating sustainable agricultural food systems that are more resilient to global challenges such as climate change and also food insecurity. In our rapidly evolving world, digitalization is becoming increasingly central to how we manage our resources, make decisions, and ensure sustainable development. The capacity to collect and to analyze data has become essential, especially in agriculture, where technology is opening new ways to make responsible practices tangible and achievable. This is also why BMZ supports DIASCA, a global alliance transforming agriculture with digital public infrastructure that empowers farmers, unlocks data, and enables interoperability across supply chains. In close cooperation with the Sustainable Agriculture for Forest Ecosystems program, SAFE, DIASCA is supporting farmers and countries by providing foundational digital infrastructure to monitor deforestation and comply with international regulations. Also, on a closely related note, today's session will give insights to the digitally enabled resilience and nutrition policy innovations project, a true testament to innovation. We are really proud to have supported the groundbreaking work, which leverages satellite data and artificial intelligence to offer a fresh perspective on 5 African countries and unlock insight that can transform agriculture. Harnessing advanced data and geospatial insights creates tangible benefits across insurance, banking, and other industries related to global supply chains. Insurers, for example, gain the ability to develop fair, efficient, and accessible crop insurance, reducing fraud and empowering farmers to invest confidently. Banks can make well-informed lending decisions, promoting financial inclusion and supporting the modernization of agriculture. But also for industries such as storage companies, transportation companies, food processors, and more, real-time crop and harvest data enables smarter logistics, better storage, and more efficient global trade. But of course, technology alone is not enough. True impact comes from building local capacity and empowering communities. By combining data-driven insights with training support and resources, farmers and local stakeholders can actively participate in sustainable development and contribute to a resilient transformation of agri-food systems. We are pleased to welcome Academia 2063, the Pan-African Farmers Organizations, PAFO, and also colleagues from GIZ to today's session. This lunch break will provide insights on how analytical tools and technology can be applied in practice for environmental due diligence and their benefits, and that this benefits to any business from smallholder level to global companies. I invite you to use this platform to network, to ask questions, and to explore how the tools and the technology can be leveraged for successfully implementing due diligence. Enjoy the session, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moritz, for contextualizing today's session in the context of all the activities of the SASI program, and for shedding light on the potential of digital technologies, in particular on geospatial information and AI, but also for highlighting that technology is one thing, but that local capacity and real concrete benefits for the people in the producing countries is also a vital component. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the microphone to Naveen Garg. Naveen Garg will talk about DERPIn, as Moritz has already said. DERPIn is the Digitally Enabled Resilience and Nutrition Policy Innovation Project, and this is the project in which these insights about which we will learn more today were developed. Naveen has been working for more than 25 years in the field of digital transformation and AI, with a particular focus on e-governance initiatives and digitalization projects for inter alia for Fortune 500 clients. Now he's technical advisor in the project Innovation in Agriculture, I for Ag. Naveen, great that you're here with us.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. So let's talk about DERPIn project.
So you
yes. Good to see the next screen.
Yes, we see the next slide. Perfect.
Okay, so the idea behind DERPIn, see, it's the context that this slide talks about, and here we are talking about what kind of scenarios are there in the real life, in the real world. So here we have situations where there are extreme weather events, we have floods and those kind of scenarios, and they actually disrupt the agricultural production, and they also destroy and hamper the livelihoods. Similarly, we have situations where the rural communities, they are quite vulnerable, and we have situations like COVID and other scenarios. So the rural communities, the vulnerability gets increased because of limited access to the user-friendly information, which is not available in most of the scenarios. Similarly, we have situations like the national systems, like the institutions which are supposed to respond. So they need to be prepared for the kind of futuristic future climate and economic shocks. And they are often not having that much of data, and the decisions are not data driven. So these kind of scenarios are there where we need solutions like DERPIn. So this project, this has been done under the Fund for the Promotion of Innovation in Agriculture. In short, we call it as I4AG. And this has been done in 5 African countries, which is Benin, Ghana, Malawi, Senegal, and Uganda. And as you already know, implementing partners are Academia 2063 and PAFO, Pan-African Farmers Organization. Talking about the innovation areas, so we have this AI-powered crop type mapping and crop production forecast as one of the innovation areas. And then we also look at nutrient adequacy. So we are looking at adequacy level of the micronutrients. And the third is the multidimensional vulnerability index, which is another innovation area. This project, it has started sometimes in October 2022, and it is going to end by this December. As far as the stakeholders are concerned, we have like senior government representatives, policy analysts, planners, smallholder farmers, pharma organizations, private sector operators, research and academic institutions as stakeholders as part of this project. For this project, we have country-level partners. So for each of the 5 countries, we have country-level partners, as I've listed out here. For Benin, it is INRAP. For Malawi, it is Malawi University of Science and Technology. Uganda, it is Makerere University. In Senegal, we have Institute Senegalese. And then in Ghana, we have University for Development Studies. So these are the country-level partners who have been associated with this project. Potential applications. So since it is AI powered and we look at crop type mapping and crop yield forecasting. So on this slide, there are some certain direct use cases. What we think of is that this is of direct use for the insurance company. There they can look at crop insurance stuff. Similarly, for banking industry, they can look at giving loans to the farmers based on the information, based on the outputs of this platforms which are coming out of this project. Similarly, the supply chain, like we have the storage houses, the people who are involved in the logistics, the entire transportation system. So for them also, this information is quite useful. And apart from that, the policy and the decision makers, definitely it is very useful. They can figure out how much the yield is going to be, what would be the particular output of a crop in a country, and then they can decide what could be the import and export part for that. So those kind of policy and decision making people can use those kind of information. As far as the technology is concerned, this technology has got very wide uses. So we can use it in different technological use cases like forest mapping. We can have a look at land consolidation part, the greenhouse gas emission, and of course the water resource management. So these are the different broader areas in which this technology can be used. So with that, I come to the end of my part, and I will hand it over to Christian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naveen, for showing us the context, the objectives, the partners, and the potential application areas of the DERPIn project. And now we want to really shed some light on the technology used, on the experience gathered so far. And for this, I would like to welcome and introduce you to Dr. Racine Ly. He's the Director of Data and Intelligence and Governance at Academia 2063. His department hosts the institution's effort in data and modeling innovations for decision-making and policy-making in sectors such as food systems and climate. Racine, great that you're here with us, and we are now really keen to learn more about what you've done and what you've learned.
Thank you so much, colleagues, and thank you for this opportunity to share the results that we have from the DERPIn project, and very useful, we believe, in due diligence. So I'm going straight to presenting the outputs of our research and how it can serve the purpose of corporate due diligence. I will start, my presentation is a fourfold presentation. I will start with the rationale, let's say the overarching rationale of what we try to do, the need, the challenges, and the opportunities. Basically, we all know by now that African population is growing. So we're expecting to have between 2.5 and 2.6 billions. That means an increase of plus 70% in terms of agricultural production. But at the same time, also, we have that increase in production is not sufficient. We do know also that it has to be nutritious and environmentally sustainable. Aside of that, we have the challenges, meaning that we have a poly-crisis setting happening right now globally, but in particular here in Africa, with the climate change impacts that we all know by now, climate change impact, the climate variability as well, land and water scarcity, and what have you. And that put a lot of pressure when it comes to productivity and resilience. We also know that there's a lack of tailored and near real-time monitoring and evaluation systems, having some anticipatory approach to make sure that we can navigate through uncertainties and also the effective intervention planning as well. The opportunity we saw here via DERPIn, and thank you for the support that Jazid and our colleagues there have put here in this project, is how we use geospatial data and artificial intelligence technologies to bring, as I used to say, the science of where to support our understanding, meaning the why, and then plan for what to do and when. That is basically the goal of what we've been trying to do under DERPIn. To do that, we have some guiding questions as a research institution. We need to be guided by some, let's say, purpose. And what we wanted to know here is what type of crops are growing and where. We might have that information at the country level, but do we exactly know where at the high resolution and also in a timely manner? And the second is what are their level of production, if possible, before the harvesting period, meaning forecasting. Knowing the growing conditions and the growing stages to be able to identify any anomaly. Therefore, we can plan early our intervention. And also, where else do we see that those crops could grow in terms of biogeophysical parameters, growing conditions? But also, given the global discussions when it comes to climate, to know also what are the crops or cropping activities footprint when it comes to greenhouse gas emission. Here in particular, we focus on methane. I'm not going to discuss about the countries of interest. I think Naveen had to pave the way when it comes to that. But we have some guiding principles when it comes to these technologies. First, it has to be very high resolution when it comes to cropping, meaning that 10 meters resolution. Every pixel needs to have, we have to be 100 square meter on the ground, and it has to be rooted from ground truth data. It should not be only an estimation from remote sensing and AI analytics. So it means that going on the ground with those partners that Naveen mentioned and collect the data to make sure we train our models and we verify their accuracy. Now, in terms of the methodology and the approach, it is something you would see in the literature with the latest methodology, meaning that we go on the ground, collect the data with tablets. We purchase tablets for this project, have some surveys, collect a lot of data on the ground about a plot, not only points, but they walk around the farm and tell us what are the primary, secondary, and tertiary crops that are in there, because we know in Africa we have a lot of mixed cropping practice, and also to know if we have other features on the ground, such as buildings, livestock, that might disturb a little bit the spectral signals from satellites. That way we incorporate those information into our modeling exercise. Second, we also interrogate the satellite. Here in particular, we use Sentinel-2, which is from the Copernicus program from the European Space Agency. It is an open access satellite data, and we select the bands that are at 10 meters resolution. And second, also, we derive several indices that helped us to disentangle further the crops that are on the ground. From there, we build our AI model. As you can see, there's a simplistic way of explaining it, building the interrelationships from mathematics between what we observed on the ground and what are the observations from the satellite. Therefore, we have a function, if I can put it that way, to make it simple, to start inferring into predicting what kind of crop is on the ground. But not only that, we want also to forecast the food crop production and other parameters. I will show it later in the other slides. And lastly, a very important part of our work is to make sure these analytics are validated, and we check our data, our forecasts versus what is on the ground. Therefore, we can be sure that whatever we advise the farmers and the other stakeholders, it is accurate. We don't mislead them. Okay, now in terms of the products that we developed, the first one, I think the most important one, is the crop type map. It is very scarce in Africa to be able to come and see where a specific crop is being grown. This is the first ever, to the best of our knowledge, crop type map in Senegal when it comes to groundnuts. People will just use sometimes old information and or the basin that we knew that is a hotspot when it comes to groundnut growth, cropping, and say, okay, this is where we are going to collect our data. But this tool now helps us to see where else do we know that groundnuts is growing. Therefore, you might start deriving some policies when it comes to input distribution, for example, subsidies and so on. So here, when it comes to smart due diligence, which is the topic of today, it will support, for example, the tracking of production areas at high resolution. Here we identify where, but it means that now we can forecast where and how much we can have in there. The second also is to identifying crop extensions at a cost of deforestation. I think the EUDR is very important to hear. If there's exports that are planned within the country when it comes to groundnut or any other crop, we might want to know if that crop grew at a cost of deforestation, which is basically the essence of the EUDR, which is the European Union Deforestation Regulation, and to make sure that it's environmentally sustainable. And lastly, it's to identify new products, new production hotspot, where you might want to find alternatives production availability within the country or even within the continent. But for now, we just did it for 5 African countries, and we are hoping to expand it in other countries. Now, when it comes to forecasting food crop production, the crop type map is a foundational data set that we develop in 5 countries, hoping to expand it, as I mentioned. But the goal for that is now, based on that map, how do we derive all the analytics? I already mentioned knowing where. Now we want to know how much we are producing. And we use that with some other inference when it comes to AI to forecast groundnut itself, the value of production. Here's the first map also at 10 by 10 meters. We've been doing it for 5 years now at Academia 2023, but at a resolution of 10 by 10 kilometers, which is very coarse. But now we reach thanks to this project, 10 by 10 meters. The accuracy that we reach on average was 94% on average in Africa. And that's the model that we fine-tuned to bring it to 10 by 10 meters. In terms of smarter due diligence, we believe that you can now have access to early production level estimates in the country. So bearing in mind, if there's some exports planned or imports in other countries, do you know how much that area is producing, for instance? Early warning in terms of production increase or decrease, of course, because you might want to plan also for next year or next season, where do you want to get your product? And also to identify new production hotspot, because you don't want to maybe promote overutilization of soil or intensification of production in some areas. So you might want to diversify a little bit amidst also climate variability and climate change. It's always, I think, a better strategy to know a little bit where this production is happening in the country. Another one that I think Navid also mentioned is to be able to track greenhouse gases, in particular here methane. Why this is important? First of all, in Africa, we might not know how much methane we are emitting from cropping activities. When I say cropping activities is at the farm level, and that is pretty interesting because we might want to know to what extent our farming practices is impacting our emission of greenhouse gas, in particular methane. And when it comes to here, we have the data since 2017, and we already processed them at a weekly periodicity. And for the smarter due diligence we are talking about today, we believe that we can now identify potential areas for fertilizers overuse, and also identify potential areas of certain farming practices, for example, tillage, because we know that that releases some greenhouse gases emissions as well. And finally, to identify potential area of soil degradation, because there we will now start estimating from these 3 products that I've shown, where we might sense or have a risk mapping of farming intensification. We also try to look at, we know where a specific crop is growing. We know how much they will potentially have with a certain level of accuracy. We also know what might be their greenhouse gas footprint when it comes to methane, for example. But we want to know also where else do we have the condition for crop growth, for example. That's why we built, based on those analytics, the crop suitability map, meaning that we know groundnut is growing in these areas. For example, in yellow, it's a suitable area and cultivated. But where else do we have the right temperature, rainfall, and so on for this? For the smarter due diligence here is to have a high-risk zones mapping and looking at the overexploitation and compliance when it comes to environmental standard. This is my last slide when it comes to GeoAI products. We also looked at crop growing stages, where you might be interested to know where you have a risk of crop failure, or overlaid it with a shipment record to confirm that the claim of harvesting times match the observed cycle. This is also available on the platform that I will share lastly. And basically here also you have the growing conditions, the history of temperature, rainfall, and vegetation indices. I will stop here for now. You have the link on the slide right now, agua.org, where you have access to the data on the platform. Thank you so much. Back to you, Christian.
Racine, that was excellent, and it was a very concise presentation of the rationale, of the approach, and of the different products and added values that you have generated. We now have approximately 5 minutes for Q&A. So, dear audience, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. But if, as long as there is no question from the audience side, Racine, is all the insights that you generated, is this sitting in your institute, or is it already applied by, for example, policymakers or regulators or the private sector? And if so, to what extent?
Yes, we started having some feedbacks coming from policymakers at the government level. For example, in Senegal, last week we had a meeting with the Director of Agriculture, interested in having those data for the policy making, how much to return in the country when it comes to production for food security and how much we can trade. That is an example we have there. And for the private sector, the interest is more on the data side because they want to develop more products when it comes to the crop mapping, for example, we developed. And one thing that I would like to share also here, the biggest users of the platform are actually located in China when we look at the analytics of the platform. So it's something surprising to us, but I think it's showing that probably the private sector outside of the continent is interested to know where are those hotspots.
And if I want to use this data, what do I need to do?
Nothing to do. You go to the platform, aagwa.org/the country, and it's open access.
And a technology is never fully and to the end developed. So what are kind of the next steps that you would like to achieve?
First, we want to expand all of those analytics to the continent. It will take resources, as you know, because these 5 countries, it took us quite some time, but it helped us to develop the foundational in terms of mechanisms and modeling. Now we know how to do it. We want to now to expand it to all 55 African countries to make sure that we have the economy of scale, to make sure that everyone has access to it in their own countries.
You're a researcher. Often, when you set up a research topic and proposal and you have your research questions, you obviously don't know of whether it will fly or not. Were you surprised about the results? And if so, to what extent?
Yes, we were surprised. We were surprised in the methodology itself of collecting data. We found a way actually at a lower cost to multiply the data sets that we will use for AI. As you know, AI is very needs a lot of data. We couldn't just collect the data everywhere in the country, but surprisingly, with little data, it was possible to have great accuracy. That's the first surprise that I had. And I think as a general trend, that's where AI is going. Less data, but with more accuracy.
Wow, that's interesting. But this also links to one question. Could you please say some words about how you did the accuracy assessment? And is the data published in the GEE cloud? Do you know what the GEE cloud is?
Yeah.
Okay, but then first, how did you do the accuracy assessment?
Yes, the accuracy, we did it at two levels. First at the algorithmic level, and one with comparing it with our data on the ground. So when we train the model, we just take one part of the data set to train the model. Another part is set to verify that the model is telling us the truth, quote unquote. That's the first assessment we did. And then the second is once we did the forecast in classification of crop type maps, we asked the colleagues also to have a look at it to make sure that we are classifying it correctly. That's the assessment we did on the crop type map. Now on the production is the same, but just out of the bag.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then the second question, so do you publish it on the Google Earth Engine?
Google Earth Engine, no, not yet, but it will get there. But so for now, you have access to it on our platform, and the data and the visualization.
Perfect, Racine. For the time being, that was the first Q&A, but you will be present on the podium again in 15 minutes or so. But let us first take our next speaker. So thank you very much, Racine, for the time being, but you will be there later. So if you should have any questions, please think about your questions. And also if you should have any questions with regard to our next speaker, then also use the time directly to type in your questions, and after the presentation I can take this question. So I will now come to my third speaker, and as Moritz said in his opening remarks, he made sure technology is the one thing, but obviously people on the ground and the producing countries in particular, and their capacity to use these tools is equally important. And that's why the farmer's perspective is a key component of the whole research project. And to learn more about the farmer perspective on this tool, I would like to welcome Aimable Twagirayezu. He has a track record of working in leadership and management roles in international development projects in Rwanda and beyond. He is now program officer at the Pan-African Farmers Organization and was involved in this capacity and is involved in this capacity in this project. Great that you are here with us, Aimable.
Yes, thank you very much, moderator, and dear Mr. Moritz, on behalf of the GIZ and the German government, and all observe the protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, before I say something on the presentation, allow me to present the greetings of Mr. Ibrahima Coulibaly, the president of PAFO, and Dr. Babafemi, who is the CEO of PAFO, who could not be with us today, but I'm just here to represent them. And allow me also to acknowledge the contributions from GIZ and academia when we're implementing DERPIn project. So it was a very good input from you and from both of organizations. Now, let me just take you through on some slides where we think of what we can share with you on the private sector and farmer linkages through PAFO. Let me just talk on the four main points. I will not take too long. I will talk about PAFO introduction and see what we have managed to achieve, especially in regards of the private sector. Look at the areas of cooperation for the private sector. Maybe some of the participants who are here present might be interested to know where they can collaborate with farmers. And lastly, just conclude my presentation. Without further ado, Pan-African Farm Organizations, PAFO, is a continental organization with membership base composed of 5 regional farmer networks. And it has been established back in 2010 in the facilitation of the African Union. And it's a voice of so many farmers across Africa. Approximately about 80 million African farmers who are integrated in about 73 national farm organizations, unions, cooperatives, associations in 5 regional networks. Now, you see the African map. At a glance, we have what we call, these are the members. We have the Eastern African Farmers Federation. Its headquarters is Nairobi, Kenya, bringing together all the farmer associations within East Africa. We have what we call PROPAC in the center of Africa, which is a regional platform of farmer organizations of Central Africa. It's headquartered in Yaoundé, Cameroon. We have ROPA, the network of farmers and producers organizations in West Africa. It's headquartered in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. Then we have Southern African Confederation of Agricultural Unions, SACAU, which is headquartered in South Africa. And at last but not least, we have Maghrebian and North African Union of Farmers, Minagri, which is headquartered in Tunis, Tunisia. So they are the 5 regional blocks or regional networks that have joined forces to constitute PAFO and have an amplified voice at the continental level. Now, we are based in Kigali. PAFO is registered in Kigali as an international NGO and is certified by Rwanda Governance Board. And shortly, some of the current, our strategy is focusing more on the 4 main pillars: a strong PAFO, farming as business, managing farmers' knowledge, and trying to influence the policies and decisions. But we are under developing the new strategic plan 26-2030, which will be adopted in December during our ordinary GA. But in short, those are the areas that we have been working on during 21-25. Now, you can wonder, or anyone can just wonder, what PAFO has been doing, what we have come up with in terms of achievements. We are more on advocacy as a continental apex, and therefore we have been doing so many works on advocacy side. But we have been working with EU through IFAD on this particular program, and between 19 and 25, especially last year, between May and July, we managed to organize 5 regional consultations and 1 continental consultation on post-Malabo processes. For those who don't know, there is a continental program which is called the CADEP, Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program. It's an initiative of the African Union with NEPAD. And this is a comprehensive program bringing in the ideas and policies on the commitments on the continental levels, which should be adopted to regional and national levels. So PAFO at this level, so we try to gather farmers and see, react, evaluate what has been effective and ineffective. So with these consultations, we have developed an independent memorandum, which has been submitted to the African Union Commission and the PAD. And some of the highlights, some of the recommendations were on investment, trade, public-private partnerships, and others. So we also participate in so many global and continental events in policy and advocacy. Now, we do have another program that we implement in collaboration with EU and College, and it's about knowledge management and sharing best practices. So far, we have around 24 innovation series, and most of the innovations are talking about entrepreneurship. They're talking about innovations, ICTs, and how can these inputs can generate some changes, some impacts on the grassroots level. And currently, we have a program we are implementing with the FAO, which is bringing together about 50 young agripreneurs across Africa. And each mentee has a mentor. And these mentees are mostly the young, innovative agripreneurs who have brilliant ideas and innovative actions. So they are really good. They are being trained. And again, we managed to have between 23 to date, we have what we call Exchange Platform. So Exchange Platform is a program that was initiated resulting from COVID-19, where most of people were not allowed to travel. Then we said, how can innovation, how can technology play a paramount role in the dissemination and knowledge sharing among farmers and farm organizations? That's where, in partnership with AHA. AHA is a Germany non-governmental organization working closely with PAFO. So we have developed this program, and through the program, we have sessions. So we organize sessions where we can invite people within different regions, talk about different topics, private investment, trade, many more others. As you see, we also have DERPIn. I think Dr. Racine and Naveen have explained more details about DERPIn, but through the program, we managed to mobilize farmers to participate in all those activities that Dr. Racine has talked about, trainings, workshops, data collection, dissemination of those tools. And recently, I know there are also other similar activities on making those platforms being known, being official. And for working with the African Development Bank, we organized a conference in March, Nairobi. It was a high-level continental conference on climate financing. And there are more others that we did, like we, together with NEPAD, we organized a continental workshop in Yaoundé between June and in June this year, discussing about what should be the priorities when it comes to Kampala declaration. Now, let me jump on the areas of cooperation for private sector. Some of us here present may wish to know, if I want to work with the farmers, what are the areas that should reflect more the interests of the private sector. For your information, PAFO does sit on 14 global and continental committees, different committees, and therefore we think one area is the advocacy with AUC, African Union Commission, NEPAD, especially on the Kampala Declaration, because we are also sitting on the annual review committee. So another component, I think, is research. So glad that academia is there, other partners are there, but without the involvement of farm organizations and farmers, the researches can be effective. But if farmers and farm organizations are involved, as it has been the case for the DERPIn project, I think it brings more coherence, more relevance, and more inputs. So research is another area. Knowledge management, knowledge sharing is also another area, because the best practices that have been positive from previous initiatives can be always good to be scaled up. So corporate due diligence, I think in terms of compliance with the EU regulations, I think that's also another area, because some of the farmers or farm organizations or associations are not well aware of those regulations. And when it comes to exports, when it comes to trade, I mean, some farmers can be hindered because they don't know this regulation. So I think it's another area, and there can be other specific partnerships, and see better how we can discuss. This was on the continental level. At the regional level, you know, our members, they do play a pivotal role on the advocacy, but at the regional levels, in collaboration with REITs, regional economic commissions. So like SADC, EAC, and UMA, and the others. So any private sector, any entity can just get in touch with our members at the regional levels and see how better the advocacy can do. Regional agriculture investment plans is also another area where the review or the assessment can be done and see how better farmers can be strengthened, or what are the gaps if it comes to investment. Also supporting our members, maybe with direct support of the projects and other specific partnerships. At the national and local levels, we think that the major area should be the support for advocacy, especially on the domestication of Kampala. So I think some of you are here who know that there has been a commitment from the continental level, which should be translated from continental to regional and national levels, because without the adoption at the national levels, those good commitments cannot be achieved, especially when it comes to 10% investment. And again, here, the private sector should play a role in the national agricultural investment plans and avail and use of equipments, machinery, inputs. I mean, there are so many things that can be areas of cooperation for private sector at different levels. So any partner in private sector who is interested to work with farmers can just approach farm organizations at different levels. Yes, I'm just concluding. So as I'm concluding, you can see PAFO is a continental apex, but at different levels, their representatives, regional, national, and local level. So I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention. In case of any concern or questions, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Aimable, thank you very much for this presentation of PAFO and the contributions of farmer organizations and on all the projects that you're implementing with these farmer organizations in different projects. I would now like to invite all speakers on the stage for our final Q&A, and I would like to invite the audience, so if you should have any questions, to ask your questions. So the other speakers will now be beamed also on stage. And Aimable, one more question to you. So I think you and Moritz initially also made the important point that, for example, when we develop new digital tools, then these tools also need to have a concrete benefit for smallholder farmers, farmers on the ground. So from your experience and all the projects that you and PAFO and your member organizations have implemented, what are critical success factors for fruitful cooperation in the development of such new tools and so on and so forth? So could you all please switch on your cameras and microphones? And Aimable, what do you think? What are key success factors when cooperating on in these kinds of projects with farmer organizations and farmers?
Well, yeah, thank you very much. That's a critical question. I will just try to be as brief as possible. Two elements are involved. Number one, at the planning stage, I think, yes, if there has been a comprehensive and co-creation planning sessions involving farmer and farm organizations, I think the tools that can be developed should reflect the needs actually on the ground. And if it comes to needs assessment, the planning stage, of course, you can see, do we develop tools but which are responding to the needs of the farmers? Because at the end, that's very critical. If this is really captured at the planning stage, I think for the rest, it's going just to be dissemination and practicability of those tools. Number two, if it comes to implementation, again, the collaboration with farmers is very key, as it has been the case for GIZ. I mean, DERPIn project supported by GIZ, because we could see how successful it was for DERPIn project, because there has been very close collaboration between GIZ, academia, PAFO, and members. So there are so many factors, but two of them are planning, how better the inputs, the needs assessment have been captured. And number two, when it comes to implementation, how continuously the farmers, of course, with other development partners are engaged to contribute to the success. I think those are the two main success factors to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Naveen and Racine, please switch on your video so that we have you both also on stage. So I take from what you just said, Aimable, that the farmers organizations should be involved in the planning stage so as to ensure that their needs are addressed, and obviously in the implementation stage, so that we solicit their experience and insights. Naveen, to what extent have been the farmers involved in this particular project about what we're discussing today? And what are your learnings from this? Your video is still switched off. So if you want, you can, or it would be great if you could switch on your video. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, okay. I'm having some connection issues, but then, yeah, I managed to listen to your question. So basically, the farmers have been involved, like the country level partners, they have been involved with farmers, and we have used for data gathering, or as you know, that AI has got a lot of data to be interpreted, to be analyzed. And from that perspective, the farmers have been involved to a very large extent in this project. And yeah, and as far as the outputs of this project are concerned, as I understand, like, since we are talking about the crop yields and the estimates, the yield forecasts and all that, this information is really, really very useful for the farmers, because they can actually look at the inputs. They can also look at what kind of yield they are going to get and what could be the supply chains that they can utilize, and that kind of information is very, very useful for them. Similarly, for the industries also, like as we talked about the banking industry or the supply chains industry or the crop insurance. So there also the farmers are going to get a lot of because farmers are looking for loans and they are looking for crop insurance, and these kind of information are really very, very useful for the supply chain and other industries too. So I think that farmers are going to get a benefit a lot of out of this project, and we'll see how farmers are going to benefit out of these platforms as they start using these platforms. And maybe I will hand it over to Racine, because Racine and PAFO, because they have been involved at the ground level, and they are more aware of how farmers have been involved and are getting benefit out of these. Yeah.
And Racine, yeah, that would be also a question from me to you. You mentioned that you have a lot of traffic from Chinese actors. And do you also know whether, yeah, farmers and farmers associations from the 5 countries are using this tool already? Or would you say no, and this has good reasons because you will still need to develop further some more added value for these farmers? So yeah, does your tool meet the needs of farmers already, or is there still room for improvement?
Yes, the honest answer is there's still room for improvement, definitely. I think farmers here in Africa, they are following the trend. They are at the beginning of that trend where you have something plus AI. You see the trend where we used to have a razor or a toothbrush that is mechanic, right? Now electricity become very common, and then the business model of a lot of things change. Something plus electricity, powered by electricity. Now, I think that tendency is also coming into AI when you have something plus AI. So the cognification of things. I think the farmers are aware of it. They are looking for it. They want to use it, but they still need, though, a high level of technology savviness to really use those information. And I think that last mile is where a lot of effort needs to be put. So on our end, we tried actually to do some capacity building and training within DERPIn project, working with farmers, showing them the products, having their feedbacks. And I think that they will get there at some point. But I think what we're doing here is foundational first. And then therefore, we provide those analytics to the private sector, the policymakers, the researchers, and the farmers, most importantly, hoping that the ecosystem will take over.
Aimable, looking at all the other projects that you have already implemented with PAFO to get this last mile, what do you think? What recommendations, what learnings can you give in order to get this last mile to the farmers on the ground with new digital technologies?
Well, yes, there are so many things to be taken into account, but maybe 2 or 3. Number one, I think, we need to analyze the characteristics of the farmers. Majority of the farmers, yes, sometimes we talk about smallholder farmers. Yes, that's true. I think they represent a big portion of the farmers across Africa. But there are also another part of farmers. I mean, like big farmers. I mean, there are some farmers who are owning big businesses, big enterprises. I think it's cross-cutting, but looking more on the big scale, which is the smallholder farmers. Number one, some of them are illiterate, or they don't have enough literacy skills to adapt and use these technologies. But I like the way academia has been processing them, because they extracted some of the advanced and scientific information, and they tried to, make some interpretations at the farmers' levels. So I think that's very important, because for a farmer who has never been gone to the school, I mean, who is interested to, technology, AI, anything, just, use literal and well and simple, technologies. So I think that's an entry point to me. How can we better simplify or easy the technologies or the initiatives in regards of the AI and because some of the farmers, they always hear, okay, AI, but none or very few are really familiar with how AI is working. So to me, we should try to simplify these existing knowledges. Number two is okay. Maybe
number 2.
seconds.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Number 2 is the sustainability of these tools and the involvement of partners, because we have seen a lot of projects, a lot of programs, very excellent, innovative ideas coming in, but to a certain extent, because of different factors, maybe after 5 or 10 years, they are no longer there. So how do we engage policymakers? How do we engage governments? How do we engage all other actors so that the existing initiatives, tools can be used for farmers, for private sectors and policymakers for a sustainable way? Over to you.
Thank you. So accessibility, simplicity, real use cases. This is important if we want to make farmers users of these tools, and they need to be sustainable, stable, not just for 5 years on the market and then they're gone again. Now we need to come to our closing remarks. We only have 2 minutes left or so, but I would like to ask in particular Naveen and Racine, the target group or the audience here basically represents representatives from Germany and from other European countries. So what wish would you have with regard to these kinds of actors, with regard to the tools that you are developing? Racine.
My hope is, first of all, they will be useful to them when it comes to interacting with food production systems in Africa. And my hope also is, from our perspective, to make it continental wide and work on that last mile. I think if support could be given when it comes to doing this, I think both parties will benefit from it.
Perfect. Naveen, what would be your hope with regard to the actors present here in this video call?
Yeah, I also think the same, that the business side, the actors from the European countries, they will have more information about the African food systems, and there will be more interaction between the actors which are there in Africa and in Europe, and both sides will actually benefit out of the precise information, because here we are talking about 10 meter by 10 meters. So that's the preciseness level of the information that we are getting out from DERPIn project. So the accuracy level is very high, and I think that will lead to benefit both the sides. And of course, the smallholder farmers also, because they are also big stakeholders, and they also need to benefit from these kind of initiatives. Yeah.
So thank you very much to the 3 of you for this insightful presentation. And I think that we all learned a lot about geospatial AI and how it can support our joint effort in increasing sustainability in agricultural supply chains. I'm really impressed by the fact that you can get down to 10 meters and get information about this on a massive scale. I think it's impressive what you have achieved in the course of this project, and I wish you well with all the tools that you're developing, and hope that you will be able to close the gaps on the final mile, but also generate great added value, not only for Chinese actors, but also for European actors. And I'm sure that whoever from the audience's part is trying out and testing out these tools that have been developed and provide feedback to the team, it will be greatly appreciated. So what I take from it, the potential of geospatial AI is enormous when it comes to crop type mapping, crop yield forecasting, greenhouse gas emission measuring, that we can work together when we apply this for more efficient, resilient, and economically strong global agricultural supply chains. So thank you very much to our distinguished speakers. Thank you very much to the audience for your attention. If you should have any further questions, please reach out to the SASI team via the website, via the LinkedIn account. Sign up, if you haven't already, for the monthly newsletter of the SASI team, where you will be informed about events, studies, and the funding opportunities of SASI. And obviously, it would be great if we see you back for the next SASI lunch breaks, which will take place on Friday, the 7th of November, for the final SASI lunch break this year. And we will discuss intersectional approaches and empower women farmers and agricultural supply chains through the feminist and fair initiatives. So thank you very much. You will see Annette, my colleague, next time. And then have a great day. And I wish you good luck with your great IT tool that you have developed. Thank you very much and all the best. See you next time.